My name is Edwin Luna. I'm the Employer Program Specialist today. And joining with us, we have our guest speaker, which I'll introduce in a second, and my colleague, Rosemary Chan, who's over at the, correct me if I'm wrong, the PRISM section, who will be joining us today. But we do have the pleasure today to have Sanjay Mahadeo, I hope I said that correctly. He is a John Jay alum and a cybersecurity engineer at Lockheed Martin. And we'll be speaking to you folks about the journey of their career journey that he has taken part in doing these wonderful things that he's probably doing, which we'll be talking about. But just to give everyone a full disclosure and heads up, there is a recording, and the only person who's recorded right now is only Sanjay. So students, you are not recorded, just full disclosure. So don't be alarmed. You will not be recording the session. But, the first 15, 20 minutes, we'll have Sanjay talk about his journey. And afterwards, we'll take question and answer. And I want to let folks know this is a safe environment space. It is a relaxed space. I like to keep it kind of a lounge type style, and no question is a dumb question. So please feel free at the end to ask any questions and concerns you have. And with that said, Sanjay, the floor is yours.
Thank you. All right. My name is Sanjay Mahadeo. I'm a cybersecurity engineer at Lockheed Martin and a John Jay alum, and I am feeling a little bit under the weather, so I just thank you in advance for bearing with me today. So I am both a cybersecurity engineer at Lockheed Martin and recently also a systems engineer and chair of our site's professional Asian American network. I graduated from John Jay back in 2018, and I'll just give you a rundown of my journey from school to my current position. So I started in pre-med actually at City College for 2 years. I come from parents that have a very traditional Indian outlook. So it was doctor, lawyer, engineer, and my mom hates lawyers. So I have two choices to go off of. And it turned out that I was really bad at science classes. So I had one choice to go off of. I ended up not doing so great in my science classes back at City College, and I switched my major. So in high school, I got a little bit of coding knowledge, and I researched on the most desirable careers in tech. And that's where cybersecurity came upon my radar. And since I was already within the CUNY system, I looked at which schools had available programs and saw that John Jay had computer science and information security. So one of the scary parts about that was I had friends and family that have horror stories about the transition process and just losing credits and time. But it was actually pretty fluid since I was already within the CUNY system. So I started John Jay back in 2016, and it was a scary transition, but I felt like I fell right into a place where my brain belonged. Just moving from pre-med, which was a lot of memorization, to cyber and CS, which felt like logic puzzles and something that was very point to point and straightforward. Up until that point, just a little bit more about me. I taught math and English at a Saturday school. So I was really thrilled when I got the opportunity to tutor and take the understanding that I have and give it to other people that were in the program with me. And a little bit more along that path, it was the winter before I graduated, I got the opportunity to co-teach Intro to CompTIA during the winter semester, which was dope. I think 93% of the students got A's, and I take pride in that. But right after that winter semester is when I started job hunting. And that was definitely a grueling process that takes a lot of dedication. And personally, my process was every Sunday, I sent my resume out to like 50 different places. And I had a spreadsheet where I kept track of where do you send a resume today? What was the date? How long has it been? And did I hear anything back? And inevitably, I did hear back from a couple places. And one of those places was Lockheed Martin, which was right here in Garden City, Long Island. And yeah, it was a May of 2018 is when I graduated, and June of 2018 is when I started. So it was a pretty quick transition process. I started at Lockheed Martin back in 2018 in information assurance, which is the government's way of saying cybersecurity. And I started in submarine systems. And my primary job is to authorize systems that get fielded. Now, what does that mean? Lockheed Martin is a contractor. They're a government contractor. And what we do is our customer, which is our government counterpart, says, hey, so this is the system that we want to use. This is what we're paying you to make. Tell me what the cyber risk of that system is. So what I go and do is risk management and vulnerability assessment. So we'll do things like scanning the systems, taking a look at a system's security posture by looking at its configuration. Every month, we take a look at all the new vulnerabilities they come out and say, does this apply? Does it not apply? And we have this ever-growing list of possible vulnerabilities for the system. And then it's basically a table of truth. What is true about the system? What does it look like in terms of risk? And we give that over to the government, and they say, we accept this risk, we don't accept this risk. We accept this risk, we don't accept this risk. And whatever they don't accept, it is within my power, I will go fix that. But sometimes I'd have to say, hey, software engineering manager, you need to take a look at this and fix this, or the system does not go out. And that's the primary job that I have, on top of things like code reviews and general system hardening. But I think also one of the most important things is lifecycle support. So when you think of like software applications, but think about an app that you just download on your phone. Once a week, or maybe once every 2 weeks, you'll get an update that will patch vulnerabilities. It'll give enhancements, but the major thing that's important for me, at least, is that it patches vulnerabilities. Now, I work on submarine systems that go in the water and come out 3 months later. And the life cycle to be able to update those systems and get them patched and to get the system ready to be deployed again it's a very short time frame. And the amount of time that happens between the time that we get to touch the systems is a pretty large amount of time. So those are the major challenges, at least for this part of the industry. Upon starting in Lockheed in 2018, I also started my master's in cyber at NYU. And shortly, I'll be finishing that this year, actually. Soon after that, I got the opportunity to teach at Columbia University at a cyber bootcamp. And that was specifically aimed towards the Security Plus certification. And I see a question there in the chat about it, but what certifications did I obtain in school? I actually didn't get any, but I did. I am very proud to say that my students of the bootcamp got their certifications and are all having they're all having a good time in the industry right now. But yeah, a big part of landing a job is standing out, and a big opportunity to stand out is getting certifications. Because I know for a fact, at least in the space that I'm in as a government contractor, getting certifications is such a plus, because now they're looking for people that already have the certifications, so they don't have to pay to get somebody a certification. Security Plus is a big one. CISSP is a big one. And depending on the different types of field you go into, or because since cyber is such a wide net, you'll have things like penetration testing where you definitely want to at least have your network plus to show that, hey, I know a good set about networking. So it's very, depending on the concentration that you want to go into, that kind of determines the path of certifications that can bolster your resume. Um, Earlier this year, I actually got started in splitting my time between cyber, systems, and simulation. And by splitting, so splitting your time in cybersecurity is actually, I think, an impossible task. So what I mean by splitting my time is I work a full 40-hour work week of cyber, and after working hours every day, I take my cyber hat off and I put my systems hat on, and I work as a systems engineer. And generally, I set up systems for other engineers from around the uh, the states to remote into and collaborate to simulate the use of different systems. So uh, we have a lot of systems where the we have systems where the math of how gravity works on that system is really important, and we need to get it perfect before it actually goes out for deployment. And there are people all around the states that are very, very good at one particular part of that system. So it's helping to find a space where all those people can collaborate and perfect all of the formulas before creating a uh, spending all the capital to develop that system. So it's effectively a really tight planning process. Um, and there's a really, as I said, a vast amount of different career opportunities under the umbrella of cyber. And yeah, I feel free to ask anything and I'll respond to the best of my ability and from my personal experience.
So questions actually. I'll do a hand raise and then I'll go into the chat. So Raheem, you had your hand raised. The floor is yours.
Yeah, hey everyone, how's it going?
All good. How
All
are
right,
you?
man. Awesome. I just wanted to know, like, is there any way for students to get experience in cybersecurity, like, without getting a job while they're in college? I understand the certifications play a role in that as well, but anything other than that, like capture the flags or
Absolutely. Absolutely. Capture the flags are huge. And before you start to capture the flag, a really important thing to do, since it's actually like free to do, is set up an at-home network. Have multiple virtual machines where you have target machines where you set up as a blue team, and you have an attacker machine that's set up as a red team. And you could do all of this. One of the most amazing things about this field in particular is that like it's highly sought after, but all of the tools you need to set up a home environment to learn everything is free and accessible. And that's crazy to me. But definitely, when it comes to red teaming, download the latest free version of Kali Linux and download a Windows 10 box and Windows 7 box. Both those things are around still, even though Windows 11 is around. And go at it, have at it. There's a lot of different ways to practice and learn.
That's okay. We'll go into the chat and then I'll get to the hands raised. How long did it take for you to get the job?
How long did it take? It was a single interview. And they reached out to me in February of 2018, and we went through an initial interview process with HR in May, and then I did in April, did a final interview in May, and then started my first day in June.
All right, Brian, I see your hand is raised. The floor is yours.
Okay, when applying for jobs, and you know how there's a lot of requirements and a lot of tools and software that you need to use and utilize in the job description, do you still apply for these jobs even if you don't make all the requirements?
Absolutely. Absolutely. A lot of the times it is management. I know this from experience. It's management writing those recs and they're just asking for anything and they don't exactly know what they want. So what you'll see them do is take those recs to their teams and say, all right, which people do we actually want? Because you'll see one of the jokes I've made is I'm coming up on 5 years of experience and I'm about to get my master's degree, so I'm ready for an entry level job. It it's really like you need to take the shots, right? I believe for my position, they were looking for 7 years of experience. Um, and what it comes down to is one, stand out on your resume enough to get your interview, and two, nail your interview. That's all it takes.
Not to put a plug in, but we are here in the career services to help you with that. We do mock interviews. So, and I enjoy doing them. So make an appointment and come on by. Here's a
And
question.
also,
I'm sorry.
I want to I just want to put myself out there as just a resource. So you guys can feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn as well. Just like DM me. I think my DMs are open. Yeah. And I believe that was sent out on you could just look me up, Sanjay Mahadeo on LinkedIn.
Cool. Here's
Awesome. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Thank you, Brian. And can you please repeat some of the certifications you mentioned getting?
Okay. So Security Plus is a foundational certification that for subcontractors to the government, they are now requiring. So when hiring managers are looking for to pick up new people, they want to see people that already have it because it saves them money effectively. Because if they hire new people and try to train those people to get it, it's about a week of a training class, and then they have to the company would pay for the certification. So at the very least, I'd say Security Plus is something that you should aim for. Then the CISSP is a monstrously far harder version. I'd say it's like the breadth of that exam is way more wide, even though it's still not super deep. And I think in the same like level 1 category of Security Plus, both the Linux Plus and Network Plus are awesome to have on your resume as well, depending on the path that you want to take as a security professional.
Here's another one. What certification roadmap do you suggest? Is there any way to skip starting off as a help desk and get to system administration?
What's certification roadmap? So yeah, I don't think you'd have to. Okay. So when you talk about skipping starting off as help desk, are you talking about starting getting help desk certifications? Because I believe that you do not need that. I think starting with Security Plus is fine. A plus is okay, but I think between Security Plus, Linux Plus, and Network Plus, I think those are your heavy hitters to start off with. And then from that point, it is entirely dependent on the field that you want to go down. There are very specific certifications for learning networking. Like if you're doing penetration testing, there's a whole different breadth of network certifications.
Cool. Here's one. It's a two-part kind of question. Did they ask you to hack a box before the interview? Do you need OSCP right now in your job? I have no idea.
Yeah. So remember the breadth, like the umbrella of jobs in the space is very wide. And that my job isn't as technical. So no, I did not need to hack a box, and I also did not need OSCP, but good questions. So when you're looking at more technical jobs or even jobs in the tech space, they may ask for OSCP. They may ask, depending on if you are doing some sort of network security. If your job is to like specifically secure 1,000 systems that are hooked up to the internet, you would probably need OSCP. Yes, but that was not part of my interview process at the very least. Yeah, so when you're picking a job, and I think this is something that a lot of people don't talk about, right? When you're looking at the type of job and security that you want, you have to look at the type of lifestyle that you're looking to live as well. Look for a job that suits your lifestyle. People like the way that penetration testing sounds, just because it sounds sexy, right? You learn new things, play with the tools, you break things. It is also a job that requires a lot of travel and a lot of updated networking knowledge, that you need to know new tools and vulnerabilities as they come out. Whereas there are other positions in terms of like risk management, specifically in my position, where it doesn't necessarily require that amount of travel, but like a really deep dive on something very specific.
Good question. Do you think a lower GPA will affect your job search, even if you have multiple certifications?
I think that it affects the interview process more than anything else. I think that not having like, let's say you have like a 2.7 and you put that on your resume, I think that definitely could be a variable that makes them not move past that. But it's also about selling yourself, right? You have a bunch of things that are available for you to say that are truth on your resume. You don't necessarily have to put your GPA. If they look into it, they look into it. But it's about getting the interview. It's 100% about getting the interview. And once you get the interview, it's about selling yourself to that person that's in front of you. That's all that matters.
And to add to that real quick, Sanjay, I'm sorry. We all advise our folks and students, if you have less than 3.0, do not put your GPA. I've sat in many job committees, and there's folks that will be judgmental about it. I tend not to be, because in the job application, it does state you need to have a bachelor's. Didn't say GPA wise. So it is not a good idea. And it's a great thing you pointed out, Sanjay, that if it's just a 3.0, do not put that down. But it doesn't mean you're not going to get the job. At that point, it's the selling point. Here's one. That's a little bit personal, but what was your GPA when graduating? I don't know. You don't have to share that.
I think I was specifically John Jay 3.8, but because of, I think it was 3.86, but because I was also in CUNY 2 years before that and really flunked hard in pre-med, I ended with a 3.5.
Thank you.
There you go.
Here's a question for one person. It's pretty loaded. Thank you for doing this. And one question is, it's pretty heavy-handed. What challenges did you face in the field, and how did you overcome those challenges? It's the first question.
On starting work, okay, so getting all these classes in John Jay prepare you to go off in any direction, right? Like, I felt good enough to start in any direction, but when you get your foot in the door for, again, that deep dive into whatever field you're going into, every day feels like the hardest day at school. Like, your head is just going to be throbbing with new information that you have to learn. And I think one of the most important skills there is note-taking and then visually mapping, so you get to understand how your company operates.
Here's the second part of the question. How did you do in math when you were studying?
Math, I I got an A in calculus. I remember that.
Bless your heart.
And I got an A in crypto. So we take those. Those are math.
Also, you mentioned that you worked in systems as well. What is your advice for someone who is interested in being a system administration?
So systems and system administration, I'd say, are two different fields. System administration, I'd put under the umbrella of IT, but also a security role, right? I think one of the hardest things is coming into this field that's so much newer and looking at people in other fields and saying, hey, security is also part of your job. I'm just the guy that has to tell you that. But for specifically systems administration, it is the management of a network that is so large. It's usually going to be a lot of interconnected systems. Whether or not they're connected to the internet is a whole different problem, but it's dealing with people, I think, because it's your users that are going to be the generally the weakness to your security system. They're going to be people probably not handling their passwords correctly or what have you. But the best that you can do as a system administrator, I'd say, if you could take a look into STIGs, Security Technical Implementation Guides. They are developed by either NIST or DISA, and they're publicly available. And you can take those STIGs and there's STIGs that exist for your Windows systems, your Linux systems, or routers, Cisco devices, and you can apply them at home to practice on any device that you own. But generally, those are a good framework to work off of. And even if you realize that your work environment doesn't implement them, you can bring them in as a plus. Like, hey, this is a tool that I have that I'm really good at using, and this is my value.
Here's one. What does a typical workday look like for you?
A typical workday is rough. Why? Because it depends on how demanding a customer is. And I think, at least for me, we have these deadlines that we have to hit, right? And it's all about getting these authorizations. And all about doing this lifecycle support, upkeep, vulnerability scanning, all these things that we have scheduled properly. And all of a sudden, we get blindsided by a new system or a subcontractor like Boeing or Honeywell or Draper needing help with something. And then it's about reallocating time and setting new expectations for your customer. And I think that's probably the hardest part. Because once you get your role as a technical lead down, it's your job. Like, you do it all the time. When it comes to dealing with people and resetting expectations, I think that's a very difficult thing to do. But it's something that is inevitable as you continue on in your field. As you get more experience and more expertise in a field, you'll find that a lot of people come to you, and there's a lot of responsibility for putting out fires, and the amount of fires that we get is wild. So I think putting out fires is probably the toughest thing that comes with the territory.
Well, here's one in the cybersecurity lingo. CISSP is for a supervision position and not really required for an entry-level position. It requests, at least from what I heard, 5 years experience before obtaining exam.
Yes,
okay.
Absolutely right. And if you will see the CISSP as a plus on your, if you're looking for any government position, and you just apply to that anyway. Okay, don't let that scare you away. because it's something that people talk about all the time just because it sounds good. It's not super required or necessary. Sure, they're gonna want it if you go into management, and it may be something that you know they talk about having upon getting the job, but it really depends what sort of position you want to be in, because it could be that like 10-15 years down the line you don't end up going management, you go completely technical, and that's okay. So it really, CISSP in my book is a buzzword.
Cool. Here's an kind of a double question. What skills should I add to my resume to be better qualified for internships? When should I start applying for internships if I have no experience in cybersecurity? And how do I gain experience outside of school?
Okay. So I sort of answered this one already with the free resources, but really look into virtualizing for your system. So VirtualBox is a free application. In terms of learning tools, the Kali Linux operating system is free. It has a bunch of free tools to work with. There are free versions of Windows 7, Windows 10, Ubuntu to use as systems to attack and try to configure. And I think it was the New Boston on YouTube is where I learned to use a lot of the tools. All free. That's how you build your resume. Yeah, but you could also, again, reach out afterwards, and I can answer more questions or in more detail.
Cool. What is your advice for current students that are working and going to school full time? I'm sorry. Go ahead, jump in, Sanjay. Go for it.
Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot the second part to that question. When do you start applying? Now. You start applying for internships now. Sorry to cut you off.
No, it's fine. Thank you for that. Just about to say, yeah, you should start applying now. Thank you. What is your advice for current students that are working and going to school full time? Like, how do you manage time for projects, schoolworks, and certification?
Okay. So I definitely came across this issue personally. And don't try to balance everything, okay? So if you're working and go to school full time, awesome. That's probably close to your maximum load. I don't think that prioritizing certification should be the very, very first thing. I think that learning about tools, and even if it's just 30 minutes a day before you go to bed, right? I find that whatever I'm thinking about before I go to bed is probably something that I'm going to be thinking about or have a dream about. But I'd say learn about the tools and start slowly. Again, learn or setting up a virtual machine should be like 30 minutes. Figuring out that's one day. Figuring out all these different tools on the virtual machine, take 30 minutes out of every day to, hey, what is this? What does it do? How does it work? And if that takes a crazy amount of time, spread that over the next week, the next 2 weeks. Learn one tool every 2 weeks. But again, your health it should be your number one priority, right? Do not burn yourself out trying to learn a million things in a day.
Great. Totally agree. Did you need a security clearance before, or did they do that after you applied?
Security clearance is after you apply. You have to get the job first, and then they go through the security clearance process. And if they don't, if you don't get the job, they will not put you through that process because it is costly to the company.
Here's one. What are your suggestions for time management?
It's sort of answered, but there was a point where I was working, going to school, doing my master's, and I was also doing that boot camp teaching at Columbia, and it was rough. I think I woke up at 6 every day, finished the first job at 4 o'clock, and then took the train over to Harlem and finished at midnight. So it was definitely tough. And there was a point where I was like, man, I can't keep doing this. And I just prioritized as best as I could, and I had to realize, yeah, I can only do one job right now. So definitely, okay, your job is to make ends meet. You keep that. Your school is to get you a better job so you could live at the lifestyle that you need to live. That you manage those two things. When it comes to taking the rest of the time out of your day to figure out, okay, how do I improve? How do I get better? Just start with 30 minutes. Start with 15 minutes, and like start making a plan for how to improve your skills and how to make sure that you are a more valuable resource to put on your resume and get that interview. But yeah, time management is like, it's always got to be health as a priority, then, you know, job, school, and then whatever little time you have, even if you feel it's minuscule, just the fact that you are spending some time with it that day means you're dedicating some space in your brain for it. And that's enough. That's enough to start. Once you understand it completely, then you can move forward and learn a little bit more about it, and you will get there.
Most common questions is good. As a security engineer, do you really need to code at your job?
One more time.
As a security engineer, do you really need to code at your job?
So as a security engineer, no. The most that I do as a security engineer is bash scripting to do like audit scripts, right? So that's Linux. As a systems engineer, yes, I use Python daily. But for risk management, no, you don't need to code. So it depends, because my team is pretty small. I wear a lot of hats, right? So in risk management, no, you don't need to code. In script development, like Linux bash scripting for something like an audit script, or anything that you would need to run in a timely manner. Sure, yeah, we do bash scripting, but generally, no. Generally, if you are, let's say there is a lead position in software and their job is to code the system securely. If you end up being in a position that is akin to building something from the ground up, you definitely need to learn secure coding. And it takes a lot of time, and that itself could be its own boot camp.
Thank you, Sanjay. So next up in the chat, do you think that the CompTIA certs are valued by companies such as Google or Amazon?
I know that they're definitely valued by Amazon, just from other interviews that I've been part of. But Google, I'm not sure. I think with Google, they just have like this really down pat 3-part interview process that they are comfortable with, and I think that's the way that they sort of they hire applicants. Yeah, but it definitely doesn't hurt. But for Amazon, yes. Google, no.
The short and sweet end of it, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. Next question. What's the process of security clearance?
Security clearance for secret, it is a criminal record check. And if you've left the country in the last 7 years, you will have people will go to wherever you've been, and they'll basically ask people that you have been in contact with exactly what you were doing there, and try to just sniff down, see if you're all in the clear, rather. I don't want to say too much about it, but yeah, they'll just do an investigative background check on you, and if you have left the country for any like serious amount of time in the last like 7 to 10 years, they will do a more thorough investigation.
Copy that. So
Yeah.
that was part one of a three-part question the student
Sure.
had. Second part, how did you get the position you had at Columbia University?
They reached out. So at that point, I'd been working maybe 18 months at Lockheed, and somebody reached out on LinkedIn, and I just if you don't have a LinkedIn, make a LinkedIn, because you could just get random opportunities that come from absolutely nowhere. And it was really about it that was a 2 or 3 part interview, but I think they were just kind of reaching out to see, hey, what candidates would even be part of this interview. And I just
Mhm.
opportunity came, and I just happened to be ready. That's it. That's all it was.
Preparation meets opportunity.
Yes.
The third part to the question, do you recommend the boot camp which costs $15,000 if I have security plus
This is
already?
the only piece we have right now. I think it's the bigger. Yeah, this is the 46.
Was that?
So let me just do a quick check. Let me just mute someone here. And let me reread the question. Do you recommend the boot camp, which costs $15,000 if I have security plus already?
So if you have your certification already and the bootcamp is geared toward that certification, I don't know that that would be super necessary. And again, I'm pretty sure your bootcamp is gonna go over effectively those same tools that you can get for free and learn how to use them. But what you're offered with the bootcamp is a super rigid structure. It depends on what kind of learner you are. It's entirely dependent on the kind of learner you are. If you can take the time out of your day and dedicate time to figure out how to use all these tools to deep dive on a, a specific subset of tools that, hey, this is the tools that I'm going to use for system configuration analysis or networking or vulnerability analysis, then for sure do it on your own. If you feel that you need a rigid structure in a short amount of time, that's what a bootcamp is for.
Thank you. So I move on to the next student. One whole question on this one. When applying for cybersecurity internships, but not having any cybersecurity experience, what can make one stand out, or what to do to have a better chance of getting into these internships?
I think I've said it before, but I'll offer something a little bit different on this one. Um, for if you know exactly what that internship wants from you, if on your resume or if on the requisition it says that it wants you for vulnerability analysis or to teach you vulnerability analysis or something like that, then you learn vulnerability scanners like OpenVOS and Nessus. Or you have to take a look at the rec, then tailor, if since you're probably gonna have a limited amount of time between that rec being open and the time that they accept somebody, tailor your learning. Tailor your learning to exactly what you believe that they're looking for. Add that to your resume so you will have something to talk about at that interview. It would be tough to go into an interview saying, I don't actually know the tools. So I make sure you prepare yourself by really taking a look at what they want from you.
Yes, that's excellent advice. Next question here. What are your thoughts on other companies making their own certifications, such as the Google IT certificate? And are they valuable in the job market?
It is valuable if you want to go to that company. If your goal is Google, take the Google certifications. If your goal is Amazon, take the Amazon certifications. If you don't know where your goal is, take a broader certification. Yeah, that's the best I got on that one.
Since John Jay's curriculum focus on information security and CompTIA, how do you decide whether you want to go into software engineering or cybersecurity?
For me, it was pretty clear cut, just because from my research, the software engineering market was just very oversaturated, and the field that was going to end up growing in the next 5 years from when I started was cyber, and I still feel like that's the case. Just because between me and everybody I graduated with, I still speak to them about, well, if the FBI, NSA, all those, at least on the government side, you'll see that their teams aren't fully staffed to where they should be. So that was really my deciding factor. My deciding factor was, where is work going to be needed, and are they going to pay me enough to live the lifestyle that I need?
Okay. This one, I'm going to respectfully edit the question to get to the question
Sure.
itself. How did you learn coding, like Python, Bash scripting, etc.?
Okay. So in high school, I had a 1-week boot camp for JavaScripting, but that really didn't carry over with me too much. In terms of learning coding, my foundation right now is C++, which was from my summer of transitioning from City College to John Jay. Bash scripting I learned because of another project I was working on at John Jay. Actually, it was the capstone. Just learning to use different tools. I don't know if you guys have the same capstone, but we had to hack the John Jay Wi-Fi. That was a whole
What?
different thing.
Oh my god.
That was a big, yeah, that's a
Wow.
big story. I slept in John Jay overnight for 2 weeks and hid from the public safety in the bathroom. That's where I learned Bash scripting. For Python I learned because of operating systems class. And the skills that I upkeep are because of work. And you'll find that anything that you do in work is basically, that's going to be automatically upkept for you because you have to do it. Things that you want to upkeep after you start working, that is entirely on you. It's whatever time you have left in the day.
Next question here. If hired as an entry-level security engineer, do you get tasks based on your level? And if you do not know how to perform that task, do they teach you or yell at you?
In my experience, you sometimes get tasks based on your level. It took me a little bit to learn this, but I got the information, or the advice that, fake it till you make it. And it really did not help me. It did not help me at all. Ask questions. Say, I don't know how to do this. Teach me how to do this. Why? Because the people that you ask are going to respect you for wanting to learn. Plus, the faster you learn, the easier their job will be. 100% say, hey, I don't know what I'm doing. Help.
Right? Just be direct and straightforward.
Yeah.
Instead of trying to white knuckle it.
Yeah.
Can you give advice on doing well in the cryptography class?
I'm doing well in crypto specifically. That's a big question. For crypto, it depends on how your teacher is teaching crypto. Like, I have a good video for you. on RSA algorithms, but I feel like it's way too broad of a question. Feel free to reach out on LinkedIn, and I can probably answer that better. Yeah, the most general advice that I can give is nothing is truly random.
Sure. I mean, we could also email the attendees, right? Any resources, videos, channels you would recommend. All right. This question, I probably am going to need, not you, Sanjay, but the student who posted it to be a bit more specific. I'm going to read it as is. What do you think best to learn for the cybersecurity major?
One more time.
What do you think best to learn for the cybersecurity major? And please feel free to the student who posted it. I don't want to say your name in the recording, to just clarify that question if possible. Thank you.
Okay, I'll try to answer as best as I can here. But for the major itself, okay, I think once you get past the C++ courses, learning Python will make your life a lot easier just for completing the rest of the classes for the major. Just because there's so many things that Python can do in one line that C++ will do in 3. And then past that point, again, it's about learning. As you get closer to the end of your term, it's about learning the algorithms. It's about learning, well, I just thought about my algorithms course. That's why I said that. It's about learning the tools. And I think algorithms might be probably one of the harder courses because neither the tools nor a language will help you with algorithms. That is a memorization class. True and true. And it has scarred me.
Sanjay, do you know which cybersecurity role is responsible for system networking plus cloud server, in parentheses, AWS / Google Cloud, close parentheses?
Oh, it's a cloud engineering. So there are specific there's specific roles for cybersecurity engineers in cloud, and depending on the company that you want to go to, you need to learn their infrastructure before you even get into that interview. You have to, one, figure out what is their infrastructure, and two, figure out how to target that as something for you to speak on in an interview. So you would need to practice with AWS, take a free course, however it may be, or set up an AWS server to secure yourself. Whether it's Microsoft, use Azure, Google Cloud. But the first thing to know is the company that you're applying for.
Thank you. We have 2 more questions in the chat here. What other hard skills besides cybersecurity skills would help make your resume stand out?
Public speaking. Public speaking is huge because so in cyber, you are going to have to talk to management. You're going to have to talk to management a lot, and you need to learn how to communicate very technical things to a very non-technical audience. And that can be a huge skill and a huge selling point on an interview that the interviewer didn't even know they needed.
So I'll just put in a plug, right? Consider taking a public speaking course here at John Jay. When you pay for tuition or you're receiving financial aid, you're a full-time student, that's a class, an elective you could take. The other is New York City's Toastmasters. You could check out like a free session of theirs. They have one virtually each month. They are a public speaking organization that competes. So those are some resources on that. Okay, I like this question. How is the work-life balance aspect of jobs in cybersecurity from your own experience?
I like that question too. So specifically, one of the things that drew me to actually this position in particular is I needed job stability. I looked specifically for positions that have engineering unions. And that protects your job security a lot, right? That helps helps to improve work-life balance. So specifically, I will recommend this to everybody, regardless of the stance. But if you can find a union that says, all right, all you have to do is work your 40 hours and then you can go home and live your life, that is a great thing to look for in a company. So one, you need that, but another perfect combination is making sure that you vibe with your team. Make sure that you and your team understand each other and can cover for each other when necessary. Because one or two really bad things are going to happen to somebody every year, you know? Sometimes, you know, especially with COVID, someone's going to get sick, someone may pass, God forbid. And like your team is going to need to work with you to you know, cover work as needed as you take care of your life. So yeah, my two things is look for a place that has a union, and also when you get a job, when you're interviewing, they're not just interviewing you, right? At the end of the interview, when you get to ask questions, really ask questions that matter to you, and know that in like your first 3 months of work, evaluate your team, see if the balance of life there is good, bearable with understanding people, or maybe there's something that's not quite right and doesn't fit with you.
My mom would love your answer. She was a union shop steward for several years for the federal government. So
Awesome.
pro-union, absolutely. This will be the last question. And just to recap, right? Sanjay Mahadeo, his LinkedIn is open. That's how I found him. I DM'd him on LinkedIn. Very easy profile to locate. The recording of this session will be made available in our Career Center's career chat. So just type in John J career chats. You may have to wait for a couple of weeks for the posting to be there. Additionally, let me see. The last minute or two after this question that you take, Sanjay, I'm just going to do announcements. And for anyone else who has questions, LinkedIn is your friend, everybody. All right. Was your interview process like a technical interview where you needed to code or solve problems, or was it more conversational? Second or third part question to that. Do you have any advice on doing well?
Okay. So my interview was weird. It was in terms of traditional interview, it was a single interview that was non-technical. Well, it wasn't that I needed to code, but I needed to answer technical questions, along with half of the interview was about me and my journey. Half the interview was situational. What do you do in this situation? What sort of technique do you use, or what tool do you use in this situation? What operating systems are you fluid with? And what command line argument would you use in this situation? But there was a policy of like there's a 3-month probationary period where it's very technical, and you need to basically meet the standards in the first 3 months, or they can just let you go for no reason. So that was a very scary thing for me. And what was the second part of that?
Advice on doing well.
Advice on doing well? Okay. So one, there's so many free resources for you to use to learn more, and always be available to taking the time and doing that. And remember not to burn yourself out. Use whatever time you have as best as you can to learn. Again, do not pretend like you know something. Always, always, always. If you don't understand something and you can't figure it out by looking it up, ask for help. The fellow engineers will appreciate it so much, I guarantee it. And just, you need to market yourself. Market yourself well enough to get the interview. And once you get the interview, all it is talking well to get that job.
Great. Thank you so much, Sanjay. I want to say thank you to our awesome JJC alum, guest speaker, extraordinaire, and upcoming congratulations on your Master's of Science degree in Cybersecurity from NYU.
Thank you.
And some quick announcements that can benefit not only alumni, but also those who are attending. And then this will be sent out to you as well. The John Jay Hackathon, our first post-pandemic hackathon, is April 28th to the 29th in person. Day 1, we're at the Microsoft Experience Center, 20 minutes away from John Jay. Day 2, we're here on campus. More details, follow the Computer Science Society at JJC Computer Science. We have the Tech Talent Pipeline Virtual Info Session next week, April 4th, 1:45 to 2:45 p.m. Lizeth Matos runs points on that, and you'll see the Zoom link there. And our Digital Forensics and Cybersecurity program here at John Jay are co-hosting the B-Sides Conference, Saturday, April 22nd. It is $15 plus fees. However, if you register with a .edu email, you will get that $15 refunded, not the fees, but the 15. Still, it's a low cost deal. Those are all of my announcements here. And I just want to read out the appreciation from our attendees. Thank you, Sanjay. You seem really down to earth. Yes, you do. You're very humble and down to earth. Congrats to you. Many thanks to you, Sanjay. There's some other questions as well, but we're a little over time already. But there's a great appreciation for what they have learned. And thank you for all this information today. And just to
Thanks.
reiterate, yes, absolutely. Just to reiterate, the posting of this recording will be on Career Chats. Put in any web browser, John Jay Career Chats. You'll see it under the computer heading. The other is we will email you after this event with some of the resources. Sanjay, I'll probably circle back to you for the resources you had talked about and recommend. Sanjay's top recs and top picks list, let's call it that. And if you have any other questions, right, you could find him easily on LinkedIn. So with that, thank you so much, everybody, for your time, and have a good rest of your afternoon.
Yeah, thank you for having me.